I've been to many different churches of Scientology, and the Atlanta church is now my home. I'm very excited about us being able to move into our new facility and having our own sanctuary, which is very important to us. I'm sure many of you wouldn't want to have a church without having your chapel or sanctuary present. So that is an important point for us, and we do understand and have taken very seriously the concerns about parking. All I want to say is that where I've been and in every church of Scientology I've participated in, we've always been a good neighbor. We do keep our word once given, and we do really become, and we will become an even better member of the community. So we realize this is a difficult decision for everyone. It's an emotional issue, and certainly I'm very sorry that it's turned into that, when in fact we just want to be a very good member of the Sandy Springs community. We're very excited about being part of this community and having our church here with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Address a number of issues that came up. First of all, the church bought the site with their eyes wide open. They bought the site knowing that the property was zoned O&I, knowing what the parking was out there, but also knowing what the code requires and what the city of Sandy Springs has always applied. And that's one space for 3.5 seats in the main auditorium. And in this case, if you apply that ordinance, they only required 46 parking spaces, and there are 81 on site. As it relates to the easement, there is a permanent easement over the property adjacent to us that when this property was divided, the post office wanted additional property. Prior to the development of post office, the property was subdivided, but an easement, a permanent easement was kept on that property. City Attorney's Office has reviewed all of that. The issue came up very early on in the process. They agreed that the easement is sufficient and meets the requirements of the code. The site is not overdeveloped as it relates to land use plan. The land use plan indicates, as is confirmed by the staff in their analysis, that up to 25,000 square feet is allowed under the land use plan for development on this property in compliance with the land use plan's recommendation. As it relates to square footage, we have a number of different documents, including the original survey, the due diligence report by Curbo Property Service that was given to the purchaser at the time, the church at the time they purchased this property, that indicated the square footage is 43,916 square feet, as is also confirmed by the land area survey, which was dated February 12, 2007, and the full layout by Peacock and Associates was included in the due diligence report. Peacock and Associates architects that indicated the square footage was less than 42,916 square feet. Gensler has also prepared a full set of architectural and building plans for this property based on that square footage and has independently confirmed the square footage. It's really a meaningless argument as it relates to square footage anyway, because what we have done is we have applied a cap of the number of people that can be in the property, in the church at any one time at 170. So in terms of impact, as it relates to anybody outside of the building, the only impacts are dictated by how many cars come in and out, whether there's adequate parking, public services that are provided. That's dictated on how many people are in the building. And if we cap it at 170, where there are no caps at all under the existing office or under the proposal at 32,000 square feet, there would be no cap. And so what we've done is we have proposed a cap to address that issue. In addition, staff will review any plans for renovation and improvement of the site, and they will only approve 43,900 square feet, 916 square feet. As it relates to the variances, we can do 97 spaces on the property that we control based on restriping. The only reason we're going above that is to try to address the perceived lack of parking. The studies that we provided by professional licensed engineers that did traffic studies in Nashville and Buffalo based on Dunwoody all show that the parking that we have out there today meets the requirements and meets any anticipated demand. If you look at those churches that have been in establishment for a longer period of time and then extrapolate and then apply it on those ratios based on the number of square feet at the proposed location, we far exceed the number of parking spaces that would be necessary. Again, the variances are only required because we're trying to address an issue that they raised. We do not, in any respect, agree with the fact that there's not adequate parking out there today, or that the city council could impose anything other than looking at the one space for every 3.5 seats in the largest auditorium, which is what you've done for every other church. And RLUIPA, which is the act that governs this in addition to the general law, indicates you can't discriminate between churches. You can't discriminate on the basis of religion. That's what this country's founded on. And yet that's exactly what they are asking you to do. Parking is there. As it relates to the unenforceability of the cap, you certainly have the ability to enforce that. Your code sets forth the responsibilities, and the staff has indicated they certainly can enforce that cap. You do it as it relates to the fire code, and you can certainly do it as it relates to this. You've done it and approved it as it relates to schools, and you can do it here. The penalty for violation is $1,000 per day, or imprisonment, or both. So you have the ability to enforce it. As it relates to the Dunwoody figures, if you apply the studies that we actually did and submitted, they prove that because the Church of Scientology uses so much square feet per person, they're an inefficient user of space. So they require, in the practice of their religion, they require an inordinate amount of space per person. And as a result, their parking and their traffic demands are very low. And that was what was proven by the study that we submitted by a national engineering firm. John Walker's here with Kimley Horn. He can address any questions that you have, but we looked at 2 different sites to show that. That was before we proposed to increase the number of parking spaces on site, before we proposed a cap at 170. Those were all things that the church did in order to try to address the perceived problem, not an actual problem, a perceived problem. As it relates to traffic, IT trip generation rates show that the existing office use that's on the property would generate far more trips per day. And not only that, those trips would be concentrated during the AM and PM peak hours where traffic is the biggest issue. Basically, you have 3 choices before you. You can deny the request, which would leave the property zoned O and I. There would be no caps under O and I. There are no caps on this existing property. It will generate more traffic than the proposed use, and you have no control, no ability to control the number of people that come in and out of the site, how many are there at any one time, and the traffic generated by that. You have the option to approve pursuant to the 32,000 square foot recommendation by Planning Commission. Again, that would indicate there would be no cap. You would have the use of a church, but you would have no cap as far as how many people could be there. The fire occupancy for this site on the 4 floors is over 1,000 people. So there effectively is no occupancy cap as it relates to a church use or an office use other than the fire code, and that would allow substantially more people than what we are proposing. The 32,000 square foot limitation would not work for the church. It does not address their needs and the rights that they have to occupy the space and to use it for its intended purposes for their religious exercise, and would hamper and greatly burden their ability to do that to the point where they cannot use the site